Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. I don't know if y'all translates successfully. Thanks to the IXDA for having me. I appreciate it. I need this. I want to talk today about designing for impact. And I hope that I talk slow enough, because I usually talk aggressively fast. Let's start by talking about the world that we live in today, which is changing dramatically. We're in the middle of what might be the biggest professional shift that design has ever seen, perhaps with the exception of coming out of a craft-oriented discipline. For years, design was about giving form to things, and many of us studied this, the Bauhaus. In fact, Bauhaus was for many of us sort of the epitome of what design became, and I think a lot of us got excited about furniture through that. But it shifted a little bit and became about things like streamlining. At least in the United States, it became very quickly about making things that go quickly and displaying massive amounts of greed and success and corporate success to the world through shiny objects. And again, many of us are attracted to these things. We like shiny objects and fast cars. But then it changed a little bit, and these two words crept into it. And we started to see design on the cover of magazines, which is pretty phenomenal. And Business Week was one of the largest champions of that, using the word innovation to advance what we think of as our profession. And so that's very nice for all of us, I think. We can all appreciate that. But now it's at the center of a different type of conversation that's starting to emerge and change. We're starting to see books like this have a large audience. I assume many of you have read these. And these are books about something like social change, how to change the world, how to do good design. Yeah, do good design. We're starting to see programs, academic programs in university, that allow you to study a different form of design for impact. We're even starting to see this at the heart of conferences. In fact, this is the Social Capital Markets Conference, which typically was large foundations, philanthropic foundations with huge amounts of money. And now they have design tracks. And they still don't really understand what design is. But they're excited about it nonetheless. When I talk about these things with my friends and colleagues, and with my students, these are the questions they ask. And so these are some of the questions that I'd like to at least unpack a little bit today. I don't claim to have any of the answers. But let's start with the driving forces of change. I want to talk about two driving forces of change, and we'll start with the idea that the world we're in is spinning out of control. At least in the United States, that sort of sentiment became largely acknowledged immediately after 9/11. But it's become exacerbated by other things. I assume that the absurdities that are going on in the United States are being caught all around the globe. Probably the only thing that's really interesting about this to those in other countries are like, wow, so now you know what it's like to live in other countries. Yeah, and you start to see things like this as well. And so there is this sort of this growing sentiment that things are out of control. Meanwhile, we have ideas like this, where we try not to think about stuff like this, right? Oh, that's hard, it's challenging, it's difficult, so we ignore things like that. Instead, we see things like this all around us. Things that we take for granted start to emerge. The pictures out of Latin America of the favelas are tremendous photographs. Not sure if they're tremendous ideas, and so generally speaking, we try not to think of those things. If you're 25 years old, anyone in here 25? These are the defining moments of your life. Congratulations. At least in the United States, some of these ring more true than others. Like the guy in the bottom left there, I'm not sure you even know who he is, yet he set off race riots in the United States. But again, these are massive, massive events characterizing this idea that things are spinning out of control. I think many of us feel that way. And honestly, it's not just you. There's some actual hard data to support this. The sample size here is 200,000 college students, at least in the United States, over a period of time. And you can see that their emotional health is actually falling apart. And so there is some scientific hard data to support this idea as well. The reason I think it feels like everything is falling apart is because everything is systematically connected and everything is changing. We're at a point of coalescence of change between these large-scale systems. And these large-scale systems are too large of which to think individually, much less when they all come together. This is an illustration of the consequences of design. So consequences is a challenging word. Consequences are the results of our actions. Keep that in your mind as we talk about cheap and ubiquitous technology. Very exciting. All of the sensors that Chloe described, we can see in our lifetime the advancement of these things. From 1982, which those of you who raised your hand to be 25 were actually not born yet, and probably don't know what this item is. Because it doesn't really exist anymore. This was introduced and became obsolescent in your lifetime. As did this. Those are both digital cameras. As did this. Those are phones. In fact, it's not really a phone. That is one hell of a computer. Look at that. In your lifetime. Rather, in 15 years. The same 25 years where we saw this massive change and all of these terrifying global catastrophes also brought this tremendous change in technology, advancement. The cost of launching a high-tech product has gone from exorbitantly expensive to zero. Free hosting. Free. Zero. You can launch your internet product right now and it will cost you nothing but your time. Zero. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. Nothing. It costs nothing. And you can have tremendous impact. And so for the first time ever in history, I don't mean in the history of your life, I mean in the history of the world, we have the opportunity to ask a question. We can say, what problem should we work on? We can work on anything we want. We can say, what problem should we work on? Design for impact is the process of humanizing technology in the context of a humanitarian or social problem. It's about solving problems that matter, but I hesitate to use the word solving because it's a scary word, and so instead I will say it's about working on problems worth solving. Let's talk about what that means. I want to talk about the process for humanizing technology first. This is a process that I think many of us are familiar with. Some research, some synthesis, and some making. And we usually focus on the making, and we do that because it's really fun. But when you're designing for impact, these are much more important. And they're harder. Ethnography means going out and talking to real people. You have to leave the studio and close the laptop. Yes, oh, damn it. But our focus is to gain empathy. The word empathy is sort of tossed around a lot, and so, oh great, I need to gain empathy now. It's one of my skills. Like, my professor always told me I had to draw, and I never paid any attention to that, and now he's telling me I have to gain empathy, so I probably won't pay any attention to that either. Let me show you what this looks like when you gain empathy. These are some photos that my students took in Austin. I don't know if you know that there are homeless people in Austin. There are homeless people all around the world, and these are some of them. These are just tremendous photos, but these are, regular people. They're regular homeless people, and these are some of the things they have, the belongings they carry, the way they look, the way they think about life. Do you know about the Live Strong band, by the way? Yeah. The homeless in Austin know about it, too. It's neat. They're regular people. This is Patty Moore, who was a design researcher, and for her graduate thesis, she became the woman on the left. For 3 years. She became a 70-year-old woman, not for a day, the whole time. And I don't mean she wore an outfit of a 70-year-old. I mean she rubbed Vaseline on her eyes to augment her vision so it was poor. And she had splints of wood behind her fingers to simulate arthritis. And she had wood over her back to give her sort of a hunched spine. And she was mugged in the park in New York City. which are things that happen to the elderly that we don't generally talk about. To gain empathy requires knowing what it's like to be someone else. But let me say that more carefully. Knowing is the wrong word. Feeling what it's like to be someone else. And you can never really feel that, can you? Unless you become them. And that's hard, and it takes a long, long time. Synthesis is a little bit different. This is the academic portion of the talk, and I hope it's not too boring. But this word is starting to get a lot of play too, and so I want to give you a very brief explanation of how I understand it. You can think about it comparatively to two other words. I wonder how she's going to sign this. How do you sign abductive? Oh, okay. I also wonder how he's going to translate it, but I don't know. Deductive logic is self-contained, and this is the logic that we all learned in high school and didn't like, and so we didn't pay any attention to it. This is the logic of if A, then B, and if B, then C, and A, and therefore C, and everyone does a little dance, and life is great. And this other type of logic, inductive logic, is the logic where we look at the world. This is the logic of the black swan. Have you all read the black swan? Yeah, inductive, based on our observations, based on our experience. There's a third type of logic. This is the logic of what might be. It's hypothesis-driven, but for provocative reasons. And it's usually wrong. And that's kind of weird, to think about how logic could be wrong and be okay with that. Abductive logic is the logic of synthesis. When coupled with another very academic idea called sense-making, we get something pretty powerful. I'll give you 3 ideas of what sense-making is from people that are much, much smarter than I am. David Snowden talks about how it's designed to allow a shared understanding to emerge. And it happens in decision-making groups. This is when you're standing around a whiteboard at work, and you don't really know what you're doing. And neither does anyone else. But something powerful happens, and you move forward. That's sense-making, and it's collaborative. Carl Wieck talks a little bit about how it's creative. He says that situations, organizations, and environments are talked into existence, or in the case of design, drawn into existence. These things are not real, and then they become real simply because we speak them. The power of an idea, the power of a movement. And a third sort of flavor of sense-making is the idea that it's a motivated, continuous effort to understand connections between things. The idea of two things seem like they're related, and it's not causality. There's something else that connects them, and I don't really know what it is. The idea of sense-making. That's the idea of synthesis as a whole. This is the process of humanizing technology. And that is thing 1 of design for impact. Thing 2 is the idea of problems worth solving. And so I'll give you a couple vignettes, if you'd like, of people that I think are taking on problems worth solving. These are 2 of my students, Christina and Ryan. And they created a product that's pretty simple. It's called Nudge. They studied the homeless in Austin, and they found out that within the homeless, there's something called a case manager. And these are well-intentioned people that work with the homeless. And they may have 30 or 40 what are called clients. And a homeless person is called a client when they work with the case manager. They introduced Nudge as a way of helping contact the clients. The idea is very simple. The case manager can send a text message, an SMS message to all of their clients and say, how do you feel? And the client, the homeless person, can text back 1 to 5. And then make little pretty graphs. This is actually graphs from all of our class. This is all the students, and I'm in there too somewhere. How are you feeling? 0, 1 to 5. And then the case manager can focus their efforts on calling the people that either didn't respond or said that they were in trouble. This allows that case manager to better use their time. Extremely simple solution. When I talked to Christina about it, she said that Ryan and I realized that most families, even ones experiencing temporary homelessness, have cell phones. We knew case managers wanted to check in with all their clients, but they just didn't have the time. Okay? Ethnography leads to observations, leads to insights, leads to design. two other students I have, Chap and Scott, also working with the homeless in Austin, identified that at the place where homeless people go, the shelter if you'd like, there's one extremely overworked individual working there. They're answering the phones and they're dealing with problems and there's fights breaking out and they're breaking them up and stopping. And this person has no time to do their job. And they created something called Pocket Hotline. They also observed something interesting, which is that well-intentioned people like you volunteer to help the homeless. Almost all of you do it over Christmas. They don't need your help over Christmas. They need your help all the rest of the year. And so they created Pocket Hotline. Pocket Hotline allows you to take a call center and crowdsource it, which means that any one of you could be on call right now to answer a phone call from a homeless person in Austin. They would call, and you would say, hello, and they would say something like, where can I get a bed tonight? And you would find them a bed. Or they would say, my friend is overdosing, what do I do? And you would say, emergency, and transfer the call. Again, extremely simple. Basic tools, driven by insights, driven by observation. When I talked to Chap and Scott about this and asked them a little bit about how they came up with the solution and how they think about it, they said that we believe that by connecting people in need to the larger community, cultural change can happen. We're building a platform that directly connects the community to those in need. Look at the words that they're using to describe the work that they're doing, and you see some interesting choices. We realized, we knew, we believe change can happen. They're leveraging insights in order to address symptoms of what is called a wicked problem. Okay? Leveraging insights is important. An insight is an act that is extremely fallible. It's the abductive suggestion. According to Charles Person, this is in 1903. He talks about how it's the idea of putting together something we've never before dreamed of putting together. It's combining two things. It's that sense making again. Okay? It's not in the data. You don't go do research and find the answer. The answer is inside of you. They leverage these insights in order to address symptoms of a wicked problem. To understand wicked problems, you need to understand two other forms of problems. A well-structured problem is something that a computer can do incredibly well, like this. This is a well-structured problem, meaning it has boundaries, it has rules, it's contained, and therefore a computer can completely simulate it. If your business is in a well-defined problem, well-structured problem, you are out of business. That's a commodity. An ill-structured problem is a little bit different. In an ill-structured problem, some of these things are true. We can't test our solution. We can't even identify all of the solution steps. An example is this. This is rebranding beer. Changing the brand language. That's an ill-structured problem. If we asked our computer to rebrand Budweiser, it couldn't do it. It wouldn't know what to do. And that's where most of us spend our time. But a wicked problem is slightly different, because in a wicked problem, these are true. We don't even know what the problem is. It's systemic, which means that it's interrelated with another wicked problem. There's no ability to test our solution, because when we test, we change the problem, and it gets harder. This is evidence of a wicked problem. This is from when I was at Frog. The Frog team went to Nairobi and did some research, and this is someone's house, and it's someone's business, and they're selling the ability to fill up minutes on a cell phone. Top up here. Top up your minutes. Evidence of a wicked problem. This is a clue. Observation. It allows us to build empathy, and it's evidence of a problem worth solving, worth your time, worth your intellect, worth your ability. Ryan, Christina, Chap, and Scott, all of my students leveraged insights in order to address symptoms of a wicked problem. A process for humanizing technology when combined with problems worth solving is pretty powerful. And so let me summarize by presenting to you an opportunity, and it's a powerful one. This is a common question that all of us continually experience. Should I work at a big company? A lot of safety there. I can make some really, really impressive amounts of money. Should I work at that hotshot consultancy, right, where I get to make like all the cutting edge stuff, get my name out there in the glitz? There's other choices than that. And so consider what we've talked about today in a different light. What if you started your own company today? What if today was the day that you didn't work at either of those things and instead you worked for yourself? And you capitalized on the fact that technology is free. Remember, zero? Free. Literally free. And you looked around you and said, what should I do? What problem should I solve? Here's some clues that this is happening. This is the Designer Fund. This is a venture capital fund with a lot of money in it in San Francisco that is only funding companies with designers as founders. It's the first one. It is not the last one. These are some articles from various sources that I'm sure you've read. Fast Company. Designers are the new drivers of American entrepreneurialism. Design is becoming a competitive advantage for startups. Design, the thing that you do, is suddenly the thing that makes companies succeed, not just makes excellent products. Operating your own company is the only way that you know you will be able to work on problems that are under your control. And the only way you'll know that you can work on problems worth solving. But there's nothing easy about operating your own company. Designers love challenge. I worked on really hard problems. I stayed up all night for weeks. Well, here's a hard problem, and you can stay up all night for weeks. If you start your own company, these are all the things you're going to have to do. And you're probably going to have to do them all at once. All of them at some point, and more. These are the skills that will allow you to focus on wicked problems. And when you try to take on those wicked problems and you start your own company, there's a name for that. You become a social entrepreneur. That's a certain kind of entrepreneurship. It brings together all of these elements. It's a way of solving problems worth solving, mitigating the consequences of problems worth solving, adding value to the world. That's the message I have for you. I hope that it's one of excitement, because this is the first time in my short career of design where I've truly been inspired by the power I see of the work we do. We talk a lot about changing behavior. Here's a way you can change behavior. We talk a lot about making an impact. Here's a way you can make an impact. Thank you. Thanks.